Imagine a world where the most powerful currency on earth doesn't belong to the country that printed it. A world where trillions of dollars move through the shadows, invisible to the very government that claims to control them. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it is the plumbing of the global economy. Right now, there is a giant pool of money sitting outside the United States. It's called the Eurodollar. It has nothing to do with the euro, and it doesn't just stay in Europe. It is a ghost currency. It is the dollar that the Federal Reserve cannot track, cannot tax, and cannot stop. If you've ever wondered why a crisis in a small country can suddenly cause your local bank to tighten its belt, or why the global economy feels like it's held together by duct tape and prayer, you're looking at the wrong map. You're looking at the one with borders. You need to look at the one with the ghosts. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the 1950s. The Cold War was freezing over. The Soviet Union had a problem. They had a lot of US dollars from selling oil, but they were terrified. They knew that if they kept those dollars in a New York bank, the US government could just flip a switch. They could freeze the accounts. So the Soviets did something clever. They moved their dollars to a bank in London. They asked the London bankers, "Can you hold these for us? We want them to stay dollars, but we don't want them in America." The London bankers smiled and said, "Absolutely." In that moment, the Eurodollar was born. It was a US dollar that had escaped its cage. It was still a dollar, but it was now living under British law, or more accurately, under no specific law at all. It was offshore. It was free. By the 1960s and 70s, this little trick became a global contagion. US companies realized that if they kept their money in London or Tokyo, they could bypass the strict regulations back home. They could lend more, borrow more, and avoid the prying eyes of the taxman. Think of it like this. The US dollar is the official language of global trade, but the Eurodollar, that's the slang. It's the version of the language spoken in the streets where the police don't go. As the decades passed, this shadow system grew into a monster. Banks started lending these ghost dollars to each other at a furious pace. They didn't need physical cash, they just needed a ledger entry. If a bank in Singapore needed dollars to lend to a shipping company, they didn't call Washington, they called a bank in Zurich. This created a massive interconnected web of debt. But here is the catch, the uncomfortable math that no one likes to talk about. Because these banks aren't in the US, they don't have to follow the Federal Reserve's rules about how much real money they need to keep in the vault. In the regular banking system, for every $10 a bank lends out, they might need to keep $1 in reserve. In the Eurodollar market, the rules are flexible. Sometimes they lend out $20 for every one they actually have, sometimes 50. This works perfectly as long as everyone stays calm. It's a giant game of musical chairs played with trillions of dollars. But what happens when the music stops? In 2008, the world realized that the music wasn't just slowing down, the speakers had exploded. People think the great financial crisis was just about bad houses in Florida. It wasn't. It was a Eurodollar collapse. Banks suddenly realized they didn't know if the bank across the ocean actually had the dollars they promised. They stopped trusting each other. The ghost dollars vanished. When the supply of Eurodollars shrinks, the world starves. If you are a business in Brazil or a factory in Vietnam, you need dollars to buy raw materials. If the Eurodollar market freezes, you can't get them. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how good your product is. If the ghost money disappears, you go bankrupt. This is the hidden mechanism of global power. The Federal Reserve often tries to stimulate the economy by lowering interest rates or printing money, but they are only looking at the dollars inside the fence. They have no idea how many ghost dollars are circulating outside. It's like trying to control the temperature of the ocean by adjusting the thermostat in your living room. You might feel a difference, but the tides don't care about your settings. So why does this matter to you right now? Because the system is more fragile than ever, we've built a global civilization on top of a currency that no one truly governs. We use it to buy our food, our fuel, and our electronics, but the people who manage our economy are flying blind. The Eurodollar is the ultimate irony of the modern age. We moved away from the gold standard because it was too rigid, too physical. We wanted something more flexible. We got it. We created a digital, borderless ocean of credit that powers the world. But we forgot one thing. When you build a house on top of a ghost, you shouldn't be surprised when the floor starts to disappear. The question isn't whether the government will eventually take control of the Eurodollar. They can't. The question is, what happens when the world finally realizes that the most important money on the planet doesn't actually exist? Next time you look at a dollar bill, remember, the most powerful version of that note isn't in your wallet. It's in a ledger in a city you've never visited, owned by a bank that isn't supposed to have it, fueling a system that could vanish before you wake up tomorrow.